Good evening. I'm Michael Steele. We begin tonight with President Trump's latest attack on the federal government. It's been exactly 2 months since Trump returned to the White House, and in that time, he's done all that he can to make our system of government collapse in on itself, firing thousands of federal employees and letting Elon Musk's Doge hollow out agencies like USAID and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And today, Trump made good on a campaign promise fulfilling a longtime Republican priority, signing an executive order to dismantle the Federal Department of Education, which is already one of the smallest cabinet-level departments. Trump can't just unilaterally close it. That would require an act of Congress. But there are things the administration could do to stop the department from functioning. Residents, educators, teachers from across the country aren't taking the move lying down.
They're hurting kids, and that's just untenable. We can't be hurting our kids.
Basic education is enriches our communities, and it's hard to imagine a world without that.
I think what we do today has national implications, and I hope that we come out and show a strong message that education matters, that teachers' voices matter, and that we are going to show up and stand up for kids.
Joining me now is Randi Weingarten, president of the American Federation of Teachers, and Kevin Vick, president of the Colorado Education Association. Randi, you and I have been at a lot of tables talking education over many years, and we have not always seen eye to eye. And I will confess, back in my early days, I was very much in the early 80s, like, yeah, you know, they just created this department. What do we need it for? But we are now 40 years into this relationship between our states and the federal government in this partnership. I'd just like you to take a moment to let folks know what this means, because there are two essential players here that I learned as lieutenant governor in looking at education in Maryland that are above all else: the teacher and the student. That's the relationship. It's not the administrators and the bureaucracy and all. At the end of the day, this boils down to how a teacher teaches and a student learns. If you could take a moment and just share some thoughts around what this moment means when you're thinking about teachers and students.
So first off, Michael, thank you. There's the practical, and then there's the symbolic. And I was thinking about that as I was waiting to get on, that you and I had lots of disagreements and disagreed about some things in terms of education and some ways of improving education. But the abandonment, and this is the first point I would make, of a new president, first time I think in the Republic, basically saying we are abandoning the federal role in education. That is what's so chilling here. The pragmatic and the practical are really important too, because this is basically $1 out of every 9 is going to be taken from local schools, from a school district that is saying this is for a child, your summer school program, your after school program, the computers we buy, the welding equipment we buy for career tech ed, the OT or the PT, occupational therapist or speech therapist or physical therapist that a child with disabilities may get. This money, $100 billion, it's real money that goes directly to kids and that supports what teachers and paraprofessionals do in classrooms for kids. That's part of the reason why virtually every teacher, as Kevin will tell you, every teacher knows about this. But the symbolic one is what knifes America, which is that a new president, first time Republican or Democratic in the modern age, since World War II, since the GI Bill was passed, saying, I am pulling back the federal role. And so it's not just the education department here, it's also the assault on libraries. It's also the assault on universities. It's also basically taking away what universities do in terms of research to find the cure of cancer. It is an assault on knowledge. It is an assault on what our kids need: curiosity, innovation, confidence in the future. That's what's so stunning about this. And the last thing I'll say is schools are controlled, as you know, as Lieutenant Governor, schools are controlled by state education committees and by local school boards. So this has nothing to do with that. This has to do with taking away the opportunity that the federal role has provided to lift kids who were left behind.
Kevin, you have been on the front line today with teachers and students and concerned citizens there in Colorado and organizing. I wouldn't even say so much a protest, but a reminder of the importance of education. I want you to listen to some students who were here at the Department of Education today in Washington and what they had to say.
I'm here today with students outside the Department of Education because Trump and his billionaire friends are trying to take away our public schools so that they can continue to line their own profits. I am terrified, and I think it just goes to show that Trump is serious about hurting working people and young people for his own power and profit.
Kevin, talk about that aspect of what this young lady referenced, and that is the pain that will come from these, from what's happening now with the department and how that plays out for students K through 12 in colleges and universities around the country who are, right in that sweet spot in that relationship between the federal government, right, which is sort of the safety net support, providing programs that really help the poorest in communities, help those who are educationally disadvantaged to find a leg and support what the system, as Ms. Weingarten noted, that is being controlled by the states.
Well, first of all, I appreciate you having me on tonight. It's a big honor. And I think the young lady said it really well, that there is just such a level of uncertainty right now, such a level of anxiety, and really such a level of stress that is playing out across education, the entire education landscape. And so what our particular situation was today was, on top of the federal uncertainty, our state budget situation is such that we're looking at potential cuts in education again after, on top of another 15 years of cuts that we have been suffering under here in Colorado. And so I think what we saw today was people deciding that they needed to take action, they needed their voices heard, and we had a huge turnout today. I would estimate around 10,000 educators, students, community members, all coming together to say what's happening is not right, and we have to find a better way.
The Secretary of Education, I always thought it was somewhat ironic that she's sitting there doing this hearing for the job, knowing that she wouldn't have a job, that her whole role would be to put herself out of business, but more importantly, to have the negative impact on students. Let's listen to what Linda McMahon had to say with our own Garrett Hake this afternoon about all of this.
Between this order and the cuts you've already made, are you kind of bumping up against the limits of what you can do without Congress at this point?
No. We are looking at what other things we can transfer that might not need congressional approval at this point. And we're going through and looking at them to determine what they are.
The reality is they are trying, Randy, every which way they can to create the pincer around this one institution more so than many others, because it's been stuck in the Republicans' craw for so long. But there is another reality here that I think will also come home for them, and that is the impact that this could potentially have on red states. Pew Research shows that in reality, they rely the most on the federal aid for K through 12. When you're looking at Mississippi, 23%, South Dakota, 21%, Alaska, 20%, North Carolina, 20%. These are significant dollars and programs to support what they're doing in their states that I don't know if those governors have figured out where they're going to make that up from.
So, look, you're totally right. And I want to say two things. One, the impact is being felt already for the 45 million people who have student loans out. Remember, the student loans, Michael, had been shifted to the federal government after the banks went under in 2008, 9, and 10. And that's part of the reason why the Department of Education got so big. And so basically they have broken the student loan system. It's not online anymore. You can't apply for public service loan forgiveness. You can't apply for income-driven replacement. You can't apply. You can't change anything. It's broken, which is why we sued them a couple of days ago to put it back on. This is, firefighters, police officers, nurses, teachers, some people with like one more payment left. They don't know what to do. So when Linda McMahon says, well, we can do more cuts, they've broken it already for so many people. And the second piece is they'll break it for the red states. And they'll break it for, like, take Mississippi, that's done such a good job in really using these federal dollars to get its literacy up. How is it going to replace 20% of the education dollar? Or are they even thinking it is going to replace it? Because it's either going for tax cuts for Elon, or it's going for block grants for vouchers, which people don't actually need, because most people who are using vouchers these days already go to private schools. So we're basically robbing Peter to pay Elon here. And what I fear, and I bet Kevin is thinking the same thing, once the cuts are made, kids don't go through, we went through this during COVID. Kids don't go through kindergarten more than once. They don't go through first grade more than once. If you start cutting what we have in terms of elementary schools right now or high schools right now, how are we going to get it back? We have a loneliness crisis. We need to actually expand high school to career tech prep as well as college prep. How are you going to do these cuts? What is our obligation to our young people? And that's what I don't think is they get.
Randi Weingarten, Kevin Vick, I thank you both for coming on. I know this is a tough time for both of you in the work that you do. Our best to teachers across America and, of course, to those students. Coming up.